There is a moment when the empath stops apologizing, stops explaining, stops absorbing, and something ancient begins to rise. Carl Jung called this transformation individuation, not rebellion, not selfishness, not becoming cold, but becoming whole. And when an empath becomes whole, every system built on their endless giving begins to tremble. Because the most exploitable person in the world is the one who believes their worth comes from sacrifice. But when that belief collapses, a sovereign psyche is born. Jung wrote extensively about the persona, the mask we wear to survive socially. For empaths, that persona often becomes the good one, the understanding one, the emotionally available one, the fixer, the peacekeeper. But here's the seduction of it. People-pleasing feels noble, it feels spiritual, it feels compassionate. Yet Jung warned, when the persona becomes overdeveloped, the true self suffocates behind it. Many empaths aren't compassionate because they're enlightened. They're compassionate because they learned early. Safety comes from managing other people's emotions. This is what Jung would recognize as adaptation to environment taken too far. Not love, survival. Highly sensitive individuals often develop what we could call survival sensitivity, hyper-awareness, reading tone shifts, micro-expressions, energetic tension in a room. This isn't mystical, it's nervous system calibration. When a child grows up in unpredictable emotional environments, they learn to scan constantly. Compassion becomes hypervigilance, and Jung understood this. In the development of personality, he observed that early adaptation shapes adult identity in profound ways. The empath confuses anxiety with empathy. They think, I care deeply, but often it's, I must monitor everything to stay safe. And that is exhausting. Individuation begins with collapse. The false identity fractures. The empath gets tired, burned out, resentful, quietly angry. And that anger shocks them, because good people aren't supposed to feel rage. But Jung said something revolutionary. What is not brought to consciousness will return as fate. Suppressed anger does not disappear. It leaks through passive aggression, through depression, through chronic fatigue, through illness, and eventually through withdrawal. The empath stops showing up the way they used to, and people panic, because the emotional supply just changed. This is where Jung becomes dangerous. The shadow is not evil. It is everything you were told not to be. For empaths, the shadow often contains anger, selfishness, desire, sexual power, boundaries, the capacity to say no. When these parts are rejected, the empath becomes incomplete. When these parts are integrated, they become formidable, not cruel, not narcissistic, integrated. Jung believed individuation requires confronting the shadow without identifying with it. The empath must learn, I can feel anger without becoming destructive. I can set boundaries without becoming heartless. I can choose not to help. And that choice is sovereignty. Jung described the goal of development as differentiation, the ability to remain yourself in the presence of others. Before individuation, the empath merges. After individuation, the empath relates. That difference is everything. They no longer need validation to feel real. They no longer over-explain. They no longer rescue to feel worthy. Compassion becomes conscious, given freely, not compulsively. Jung spoke about authentic service emerging from wholeness. Codependent helping comes from emptiness. One says, I give because I must. The other says, I give because I choose. One drains, the other expands. When an empath begins giving from abundance instead of depletion, their relationships transform. Some deepen, some dissolve. Exploitative dynamics collapse. And yes, systems built on guilt and obligation begin to lose power. Because sovereign individuals are very difficult to control, Jung's anima and animus theory reminds us, psychological wholeness requires integration of opposites. For many empaths, Feminine receptivity is overdeveloped. Masculine boundary setting is underdeveloped. Individuation balances both. Softness with strength, compassion with clarity, empathy with discernment. When that balance stabilizes, the empath becomes both warm and immovable, and that combination is magnetic. Dangerous not because they harm, dangerous because they withdraw consent. They no longer accept manipulation disguised as need, confuse intensity with intimacy, stay to prove loyalty, sacrifice to feel worthy. Jung warned in The Undiscovered Self that individuals who awaken psychologically threaten collective systems built on conformity. The individuated person cannot be easily absorbed into mass mentality, and when empaths individuate, they stop absorbing everyone else's shadow. That is revolutionary. Individuation does not make the empath colder. It makes them clearer. They still feel deeply, but they no longer drown. They still love, but they no longer disappear. They still serve, but they do not sacrifice themselves to do it. And perhaps that is Jung's most seductive insight. The goal is not to lose your sensitivity, it is to refine it, until compassion becomes power, and power becomes peaceful.